Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside my co-host, Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
TV, we are in the final week of the NBA regular season, boss man. We are here, bro. Playoff basketball around the corner is lit.
100%. I know we kind of delayed this episode by a week, but we are here to talk about all NBA teams. And we're going to give you a double feature this week, basically, because we got all NBA, all defensive teams today. And then we got the rest of the NBA season rewards this week, coming this weekend. So be on the lookout for that. And of course, next week, you know the playoff predictions are coming soon. Playoff basketball is here, Jay. I know you're just as hyped as I am.
Oh, for sure, bro. At this point, I'm just glad that we're finally starting to get through we're finally going to be past the tank commander portion of the season. We'll be closer to the NBA lottery picks being set up. Obviously, the NBA playoff bracket will be in full effect after we get past the play-in tournament, bro. Next couple of weeks about to be fire.
Yeah, the NBA is about to turn up. You already know, and we talked about this a little bit off pod or something like that, where we talked about the WNBA offseason because it's going to breeze by this month as well. So
For sure.
basketball fans are eating right now. Basketball fans are absolutely eating, and we're excited to talk about all of that. Starting today, like I mentioned off the top, all NBA, all defensive teams. Should be a good episode. There's definitely going to be some murky stuff come to third team, especially with the 65-game rule, but we're definitely going to debate it out. But before we get into that, Jay, we do have to plug our socials. Make sure you follow our individual socials at The Routine Jumper, at TV on Basketball. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content, where you get the picks, news, series, clips, all that good stuff. So make sure you check us out on those social medias, especially when the playoffs come around. You know we want to, recap all of the series games and all that. So you want to make sure you're tapped in there. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. And if you're listening on any of our podcast networks, Spotify or Apple, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. We appreciate all of y'all's support. Jay, are you ready to get into it?
Yes, bro. Let's get it.
And Jay, like I mentioned, this is going to be a plain and simple episode. All NBA first, second, third team. We're going to go in order, and then we're going to cap off the episode with our all defensive teams, which are always definitely interesting to debate because where do you get the stats from, the eye test, all that combination of stuff. So it should be pretty good debate. But Jay, should we start off with the first team?
Yeah, let's go ahead and kick off with the first team. Do you feel like this one, because obviously the further we get through, it gets kind of ugly. But like, do you feel like this first five was like, you didn't even have to think about it, didn't need to pull up a stat, didn't need to pull up the MVP race, just kind of off rip, felt like everybody's is pretty unanimous if we follow the one rule me and you did agree on?
Yes. I think the first four, plain and simple, there's no debating whatsoever, and I will give a disclaimer out pretty shortly. But there's a fifth one that's a little bit of a competition, the fifth spot. But besides that, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But we're going to go into it, and we're going to start off, again, with the disclaimer. We're going to both have Luka Doncic in our teams. And you're probably thinking, TV, he's not going to make the 65-game rule. How is he going to be part of All-NBA? Well, he's going through this whole investigation. He's going through something through the NBPA where he's going to basically request or kind of make a case for him not making the 65-game rule because of the birth of his kid, because of the suspension. So I believe he's going to win that arbitration, I believe, and he will be excluded from the 65-game rule, so I think he will end up on All-NBA. That's just something I want to bring up there because both Jay and I, Jay, I'm assuming you have him on your list too?
Yes, sir. That was the bona fide. The minute TV cleared that, had to switch the whole list around.
Got you. So I think the best way to do this is we're gonna hear each of our teams out, and we're gonna basically give our thoughts after. So Jay, who was on your All-NBA first team?
All right. So, like I mentioned before, and this was relatively easy for me. Like you said, the first four spots, a little bit more straightforward. Fifth spot, a little bit more questionable. I'll name them in order of what I felt like was the easiest to quote-unquote the hardest, if that makes any sense.
Fair.
So, let's start with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, and then to cap out my five, this is where I put Jaylen Brown.
Jay, whoop-de-doo, both of us have the exact same All-NBA first team. The four MVP candidates have to be in there. We're gonna
Of
talk
course.
about the
Right.
next in the next episode. We're gonna go deep into this MVP race because,
Yeah.
oh boy, there's every one of these guys have some sort of case for them, which should be an interesting discussion when we talk about who eventually our MVP is going to be. But because there are four MVP candidates, it feels like it makes sense that they all kind of fell out the first team there. But it's always about that fifth spot. You could, if Cade was there, you can maybe make the argument, but of course he was not able to get to 65 games. You
Right.
can maybe make the case for Anthony Edwards at some point during the season to make All NBA first team, but of course now he misses the 65 games. So I think he rightfully deserves this for being available, for being, the Celtics number one guy for most of the season where Jason Tatum was out and he was able to carry them still to a second seed in the East. Jaylen Brown felt like, of course he was an All NBA lock, but I think with the circumstances in hand, especially with the season he's having, I think All NBA first team is great for him.
Yeah, I think this is one of those where, again, All NBA first team is always pretty straightforward because all you have to do, if you really do want to confirm your biases, is typically pull up the NBA Kia MVP ladder or look at whatever the last ESPN straw poll was of the season. Those tend to be pretty strong indicators of like where like voters are going to lean as far as who they think is the most valuable in different ways. And Jaylen Brown, I understand that a lot of people are going to wane on him a little bit because the latter portion of this season has been a little bit slower. Obviously, he's had a couple monster games with Jason Tatum back in the lineup, but maybe not. It doesn't feel like the same level of carry job now that Jason is back in the fray. But at the end of the day, look, the body of work is the body of work. My boy averaged 28 points per game, like for a team that Boston Celtics fans themselves, let alone the rest of national media and a lot of other NBA fans across the world, all thought this was going to be a quote-unquote gap year for the Celtics, the same way it was for a team like Indiana, for example. Everybody kind of viewed the Celtics in a very similar light and underwhelmingly viewed this team as a team that at best in the Eastern Conference maybe finished as, I think me and you predicted them as like somewhere between 6 and 8. Like we didn't think they were going to be a lottery team banked out, but they weren't going to be this kind of dominant fashion squad that they've been throughout this season where
Right.
maybe if they got Jason Tatum a month earlier, maybe they catch up to Detroit at the number 1 overall seed, right? So if you got to put the full body of work together, Jaylen Brown's he's in first team all NBA, bro. He's got to be.
No, 100%. He's been kind of on the fringe of those top four. I feel like the top four has been a discussion all year, but he's been just right there with the Kay Cunninghams and all them. The stats speak for itself. People are going to look at the efficiency and say, is that really someone that you, again, trust you as your number one guy as like a 57 shooting percentage? I mean, it's not the most efficient, but still, the expectations, I think, again, the expectations do help his case out here because we didn't think the Boston Celtics were going to be this good. It really does show, especially with Joe Mazzulla, that kind of system trumps all, it feels like, with the Boston Celtics and them being the second seed in the Eastern Conference. But Jaylen Brown took up that mantle as the number one guy, and he stepped up to the challenge in a massive way. I think he deserves to be on the first team, 100%. And like I mentioned with the other four, we're probably going to get more into this discussion when we get to the MVP race in the next episode. But those guys are definitely locks. If Luka ends up winning the case, which we both think he is, he will end up being on the team.
Yeah.
Second team is where it gets interesting, Jay. Second team and third team. Third team is gonna be interesting to see who you have on that one. But we're gonna start over with second team, and you start off with talking about your first team. I'm gonna list out my second team, and then we'll kind of go from there. So my second team, I have Kawhi Leonard. I think he ends up making the 65 games. He has to play 3 out of the last 4 games of the season, but I do think he'll make it. I do think he'll make it.
Hey, they're making a push for the playoffs. You know he's gonna play.
He's gonna play. Hey man, the 1 year that Kawhi's healthy and he's freaking balling out like this, you have to give him the nod. We have to give him the nod. So I got Kawhi Leonard. I'm gonna put Jamal Murray in there. Jamal Murray has been freaking balling out all year long, with or without Nikola Jokic, and we finally get. I wouldn't say Jamal Murray in the regular season, but we finally got a consistent top tier Jamal Murray type season this year, and he deserves to be rewarded for that. I'm going to give it to Donovan Mitchell. I think he deserves to be on this All-NBA second team. Give me Jalen Brunson. And to wrap it all off, I already mentioned this to Jay off-pod a little bit. If he's going to be my second team or my third team, I'm putting in Tyrese Maxey.
Okay, so it's interesting because a lot of the beginning portion, we were on a very similar track. The names all stick, but I think the positioning is a little bit different. So the ones where we agree
Yeah.
this is where I have Kawhi Leonard. I completely agree with you there.
Yes.
This is
Okay.
also where I have Donovan Mitchell,
Yeah.
and this is also where I have Jalen Brunson.
Okay. Okay.
Where my separator is, and maybe this is fair, maybe it's not. Maybe this is a part of the traditionalist aspect of me to still keep two bigs of some sort in
Okay.
the fray for all of this. And I'll admit that might be a certain aspect of how this is set up for me. But the two guys that I have here are Atlanta Hawks guy Jalen Johnson at the forward spot. And I also put Jalen Duren here. Pretty Jalen heavy first two All NBA teams, but I think well deserving to a certain extent. I think of the two between Jalen Johnson and Jalen Duren, you can make a bigger argument for Jalen Johnson, I think, as a number one option on this team that has like really surged back.
Especially post All-Star break. Post
Yeah,
All-Star break, like leading the Atlanta Hawks to what, the 5th seed at this point?
yeah,
After they thought they were dead in the
50.
water after the Trey Young trade, like insane.
I mean, it's like 15, it's like fifth seed, 19, 19 wins in their last like 21 games. There's 22 games, something insane like that. Like, I mean, this team, they shook the burden of the Trey Young stuff off their shoulders when all of that happened at the trade deadline. And like, you could almost see the weight of everything fall off for this team in a way that they just post All-Star break, especially, like, they've just been completely rejuvenated. They bring in Jonathan Kuminga on top of it, obviously, and he hasn't played nearly as much as they would have liked, but he still really showed up in the games that he has played. Nickeil Alexander-Walker apparently loves picking on the Orlando Magic because the dude just drops 40 balls like, like it's nothing against that team. And this team is really coming around at the right time. Jalen Johnson at the spearhead of that has this Atlanta Hawks team looking like a team you don't want to see in the first round. Jalen Duren, to me, I feel like if Cade can't be on the All NBA team because of games played, there has to be a Pistons representative here on this All NBA team, especially if the drop off from Cade to the next second best player was significant. I maybe wouldn't feel so strongly about this, but Jalen Duren's gonna play himself into like a 30 plus million dollar a year contract with the way he's been playing this year. Dude's been balling.
Yeah. I will talk about them a bit more on my third team, but like I mentioned, and I think we mentioned this beforehand too, it's nice that All NBA is positionless now, so we don't have to really fill out,
Oh man,
two guards, two forwards,
yeah,
or like three forwards, something like that.
it
So
definitely helps.
mine is guard heavy. I was thinking like, especially like when you like removed Anthony Edwards, because like I'll tell you right now, we were playing to record this last week. I had Anthony Edwards on my second team, but
Yeah,
after that injury, he's obviously not going to be able to reach the 65 game threshold. Jalen Johnson was going to be the guy who moved to the second team for me. I ended up choosing between him and Tyrese Maxey. I was gonna give the nod to Tyrese Maxey because I'm gonna put some weight more to the beginning of the season here with Tyrese, where he was again borderline MVP candidate. Yes, he had a little bit of that injury stretch just over the last couple of weeks, which he was able to come back from, and he's still balling out. He's kind of been like the perfect Nick Nurse player where you could just play him like heavy minutes and he's just gonna produce for you no matter what. Um he's just become like one of the best like scoring guards in the league. Again, the speed kill is with him all the time. A near 60% true shooting from a point guard, which is very, very impressive. And for the most part, I mean, this 76er team, especially now that they're climbing up the standings, moving into the top six, Tyrese Maxey has been the most reliable guy for them. Probably besides VJ Edgecombe, which is kind of crazy to think about because, of course, Embiid has been missing a lot of games with injury, Paul George injury plus suspension. But Tyrese Maxey has been there for the most part since day one amidst the injury, and he's been one of the best scoring guards, best offensive producers in the Eastern Conference. And because again, he was for me like kind of in those like borderline MVP discussions, especially early on the season, I do want to reward that. So I did give the nod over him. What I'm interested in your second team though, I know you said you want to put two bigs there, but Jamal Murray not even being in that crop of guards is kind of interesting to me. Like what kind of like
So, I mean, of the crop of guards I have is Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson, right? And I just think that,
yeah.
well, I mean, obviously, number one is Jamal Murray has still had a lot more of an injury riddled season than those two guys. Not that that means a whole lot, but I do think that's something that is notable. I am going with proven commodity to a certain extent as well with Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson. You can make the argument if you want to compare Jamal Murray and Jalen Brunson. I feel like Donovan Mitchell kind of is just locked here, in my personal
Okay.
opinion. with what he's been able to do as the model of consistency for this team, with Evan Mobley not necessarily being like the guy that they were hoping to take this leap. Jared Allen kind of really didn't start playing much better until until James Harden came over, and even since then he's been missing time with injury himself. Donovan Mitchell, model of consistency throughout the entire year. I'm placing a little bit more of importance on Jalen Brunson's importance, quite literally, to the New York Knicks as an offensive team. I think that if you have to weigh the importance of Jalen Brunson on the Knicks offensively to Jamal Murray's influence offensively for the Denver Nuggets, I would say that obviously Jalen Brunson means a lot more. Stephen A. Smith went as far as saying that this team
their
goes
offense
to
cannot operate without him. Yeah, their offense cannot operate without him.
yeah. Stephen A. Smith went as far as saying that this team lives and dies by Jalen Brunson, regardless if they like it or not. And so that goes to that. Like I said, I think I'm placing when I did this one statistically, I feel like they're all in a very similar tier. But then it comes down to what your importance to your offense is, and I will put Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson's importance just a tad bit higher than Jamal Murray's this season. Despite the fact that Jamal survived a really long time with a lot of guys out due to injury for the Nuggets, because they feel like they've missed a different guy every single week.
That's the reason why I kind of like kept. I mean, obviously I have all three of those guys on my second team, but at the same time, like the reason I had him, like again, I feel like even more of a lock than per se, Jalen Brunson is that because of those injuries, right? Because like Aaron Gordon missed significant time this year, Cam Johnson missed significant time this year. This is the longest stretch probably in Nikola Jokic's last few years where he's been like this injured throughout a regular season.
True.
So the fact that Jamal Murray is still consistently being a near 44% 3-point shooter, one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, being that like consistent 25-point per game scorer, where this has clearly been the best regular season of his whole career too, and the fact that he's been able to kind of steady the boat, and the Nuggets, honestly, the only like rough stretch for the Nuggets was probably when Nikola Jokic came back from injury. Funnily enough, that weird stretch for like 1 or 2 weeks like after he came back from injury, but Jamal Murray steadied the ship. He was able to still, inject life and like be that shot creator on offense while still trying to get others involved. I don't know if he's still going to be on your third team. I'm assuming that he's still going to be on your third team, but at the end of the day, like, if you're all NBA, you're all NBA. So I think like at the end of the day, I think like he will still be able to make it, but I have him on my second team. I think like especially with the injuries that are put in place, he has had a top 10 season. Even if you like want to include like an Anthony Edwards and a Kate Cunningham from like a couple weeks ago, I think that Jamal Murray still has a freaking good case for all NBA second team. So I've just been, and again, I'm trying not to say this. There's obviously, I'm a Canadian dude. I know I've been like kind of like locking into more Jamal Murray this year, but I do think that his like production this year, especially on a injury riddled Denver Nuggets, still deserves to have some love on the second team, with or without these injuries.
I mean, that's all fair. Like I said, it's not necessarily anything against Jamal Murray in total. I think he's had a really strong year. I think the biggest thing, like I said, I think I'm just weighing offensive load here just throughout the entirety of the season. I do think that Jamal Murray has had to take on a little bit more with guys being out of the lineup. But as far as like straight consistency across the board and their overall importance, from wire to wire for the season, like I said, I just put Donovan Mitchell there. But I mean, if we're gonna go ahead and segue into third team, Jamal Murray was literally the first name that I put down for third team. So when I tell you it's like barely a fall off, I would also say that I want to mention Jamal Murray was more definitively in my second team before we had the adjustment with Luka Doncic, because before Luka Doncic was in my first team, Kawhi Leonard was actually somebody that was heavily in conversation to be as part of my first team, and therefore gets bumped down to second. When he gets bumped down to second, sure, I guess I could have bumped down Jalen Duren instead of and led a lot more guard heavy, similar to what you did. Maybe bump down Jalen Duren to third team and Jamal Murray more so to second team, and maybe that's even more fair since it's less positional. Maybe I'll do that before the podcast is over, but that was kind of where Jamal Murray got bumped down. Was the Luka into Kawhi Leonard's situation kind of bumped Jamal Murray out of second team into third team.
Got you. But yeah, like you mentioned, before we go into third team, I did because I feel like this is like kind of the best chance and the most chance we're going to be able to glaze this dude. Kawhi Leonard, man. The fact that he was able to like make it here. Like, let's be honest, we did not think he was going to make the 65-game threshold.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But Everyone's gonna talk about it. That 6-21 start from the LA Clippers. Jay, if you remember correctly, I said at our New Year's resolution, New Year's predictions video, the Clippers were gonna make the playoffs, and this is when they
You
were in the
did.
11th seed in the Western Conference. Kawhi Leonard has gone like I know like they had to trade away James Harden. They traded away Vika
Mhm.
Zubac. Bro's going superhero mode on this team right now, and he's
Yeah.
still like maybe not to the point of a defender that he was back in the day, obviously, but he's still a pretty damn good defender. But I feel this is the most complete offensive player version we've seen of Kawhi Leonard. Like
Hmm.
the complete like version offensively. And I think the fact that he was able to turn this season around, become still honestly, people are putting him into top almost like borderline top 5 player in the league conversations right now. It's a testament to again how underrated I think we view him all time, but obviously it has to do a lot with injuries. But at his peak, and with and like we could say this now going to the playoffs. I don't know how like much the Clippers are going to be competitive, but when you have Kawhi Leonard on your team, you gotta feel like you have a chance no matter what.
I mean, they're going into a pretty favorable situation here, too. If you really look at the way the standings are set up, I mean, like you said, your prediction, I mean, you're in a really good spot right now, bro. I'm not going to lie as far as the idea of them being able to make the postseason because if you look at where they're at right now, they got to play a one win and end game against the Phoenix Suns is pretty much where it's sitting at right now, barring too much
Basically, yeah,
interchangeability between them and the Portland Trailblazers, which the Trailblazers have been playing pretty decent basketball the last couple of games, but there's a chance where the Clippers get to play a win and in game against the Phoenix Suns, and that does put them in a really interesting situation, TV, because they would be the seventh seed going up against the San Antonio Spurs, Kawhi Leonard's former team, which is kind of an interesting situation there. You know what I mean? And then, you know, it gets tricky from there. But even if, let's say, they lose to the Phoenix Suns, they only have to play the winner of the Portland Trailblazers versus the Golden State Warriors, and I mean Portland's playing well right now, but I mean, I still would take the Clippers in that game. And I think that the Warriors, although they just got Steph Curry back, I still kind of like where the Clippers are at right now as
yeah,
a team collectively. So, I mean, we're talking about a Kawhi Leonard that pretty much has ward this team back. In spite of the fact that TV, something we also should throw in, which is part of the reason why I thought Kawhi Leonard was going to be more of a first team candidate before the Luka Doncic rule thing we talked about. TV, he kept this team in contention even when everybody felt like the Ivica Zubac and James Harden trades were the signal that this whole thing was about to get let out from underneath of them. That was the point, right? That's the
yeah.
point where we all thought, okay, if they weren't giving OKC the lottery pick beforehand, I mean, like, here you go, bro. Here you go. Just sell off everybody. You got Kawhi Leonard possibly about to lose his contract due to the acquisition crap.
Yeah.
Here we go, man. Where this if the, now OKC really gets to lodge it in? Nope, nope. They just kept the foot to the metal, and with Ben Mathurin and Darius Garland, this team might mess around and make the playoffs.
That's insane. Borderline top 10 offensive rating. Kawhi Leonard's shooting almost 64% true shooting, almost a 50-40-90
Crazy,
season. 90% from the free throw line, just over 50% from the field, 38% from three.
crazy.
This absolutely insane. And the fact that I wouldn't say, the thing is, I wouldn't say that we wrote him off, but it's
Oh,
one of those things where it's like the same thing with Joel Embiid, right? We
mm-hmm.
just don't know like his availability throughout the season where we could say, yes, he could be top 5 in stretches. But what
Mm-hmm.
happened to the overall totality of the season?
Yeah,
This is the most games he's played since the 2023-2024 season. Mind you, in that playoffs, he just got in. I feel like he got injured in like the first, like in the game 4 or something like that.
mm-hmm.
He's going into the season with a healthy point guard, with a roster now that doesn't have any sort of what's it called, like collision, clashing in terms of roles. Like people know what their role is on that team.
Yeah. No confliction. Yeah,
No confliction. That's the word I was trying to look for.
yeah,
No confliction. Everyone knows exactly what they have to do. Ty Lue is a proven playoff coach.
for sure.
The, Kawhi Leonard is one of those guys where it's like, yes, I don't know if the rest of the team is going to catch up. And I think, funnily enough, I feel like Kawhi Leonard said in a couple interviews, like, we're not a championship team.
He
And
literally did. He
He literally,
literally,
right? Yeah.
he
Okay. Okay.
literally even at one point mentioned that like they weren't really like a playoff team anymore. Like after all of the trades, like even Kawhi Leonard kind of sent these signals. Again, it's the reason why everybody thought that this heavy pivot was going to lean them towards being a team that was going to hit the full rebuild button. They don't move off of Kawhi Leonard at the trade deadline when everybody thought maybe he would be the final buzzer beater move after James Harden and Vic Zubac get moved, and instead he's the odd man looking out, and of course he's kind of the guy standing inside of the house on fire because he's like, all the homies I was with when I first came to LA aren't on the
Gone.
team anymore. But at the same time, we've never seen healthy Darius Garland in the playoffs before, right?
Yeah.
We've seen Benedict Mather in the postseason before, but with a very different role than the one that he has right now. I mean, certain guys like you mentioned beforehand, like a John Collins, has really come on over the last couple of months for this team on
Yeah.
both sides of the floor. Like this team's
Derrick
playing
Jones
good
Jr.
basketball.
Derrick Jones Jr. has played like massive roles on playoff teams in the past as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that I think really, with them getting a healthy version of a lot of the people that they have on their team, I think it's just really important now to like look at Kawhi Leonard and say, okay, let's look at their potential first round matchup against the San Antonio Spurs. Sure, you can use the Spurs angle as part of the story, but what about also youth versus veteranship, right? What about the fact that in a series between Kawhi Leonard and Victor Wembanyama, like, yeah, you would make the argument easily that Victor Wembanyama at this juncture is the best player, over the course of 82 games. But in a 7-game series, do I like Victor Wembanyama over Kawhi Leonard in playoff form? I don't know that answer just yet.
We
You
don't
know what
know
I
that.
mean?
Yeah, and
So
also like the
it's
Spurs probably
interesting.
don't have that guy to guard him too. Let's be completely honest. So
True.
again, it's definitely an interesting feat. And again, Kawhi Leonard, you could definitely make an argument, especially if Luka Doncic does lose out on his on that case, that he has a good chance on the first team. So I just want to
No,
again give him his flowers here because we're
yeah.
definitely probably not gonna give him like talk about it during the awards show or anything like that. But Kawhi
Mhm.
Leonard, make it like having this turnaround and still being again a borderline first team player was not something I had on my bingo card going into 2025,
Yeah.
2026.
I
So
mean, I
shout
think the main reason obviously is because of the 65 game rule, right? I mean, other than that, we know Kawhi Leonard's talented enough. The problem at
yes.
this point is just strictly the 65 game rule. And hey, TV, he's still biting up against the gun here. Like he still has to kind of finish the job.
Yeah, he has to play the last 3 out of the last 4 games.
Yeah,
He
still
has
has
to
to
make
finish
sure.
the job.
And if you want to just avoid playing 2 play-in games, you need to have Kawhi Leonard playing those final 4 games because I think you mentioned it earlier. The Portland Trail Blazers are right on their tail. I think they have the exact
Uh-huh.
same record right now. They do have the
Mhm.
tiebreaker, which is really good. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you want to make sure that you secure that 8 seed so you don't have to play a second play-in game. So
Yeah.
yes, Kawhi Leonard. Uh, all things considering, can't believe we're gonna get here. But I think that Kawhi Leonard is gonna get to 65 games, which is absolutely insane. So shout out
Yeah.
to Kawhi. Now let's go into third team, Jay. And this is where, with the 65 game rule and all of these changes, this one gets a little bit wicked.
Yeah.
Excited to hear what you have as your choices. Funnily enough, I talked about how All NBA second team is very guard heavy for me. Jay, this is very forward heavy for me on the third team. But I want to hear yours first. Who do you have on your All NBA third team?
Okay, so this is where I have Jamal Murray, as I mentioned beforehand, first
Fair.
one off the
Okay.
list for the second team. This is where I have Tyrese Maxey because there's no way he misses it, in my personal opinion. This is another guy who kind of got bumped down in favor of the forwards on the second team, I guess you could say. I have James Harden here because I think whether he was wearing a Clippers uniform or wearing a Cleveland uniform, he has been a model of consistency throughout this season. And then my last two are Kevin Durant and Chet Holmgren.
Okay. Interesting. I feel like we are very similar. There's one name that I have here that's not there. So firstly,
Okay.
Jalen Duren, Jalen Don Johnson. You had them both on your second team. They're both on my third team.
Yeah.
100%. And I will talk about Jalen Duren here because with the Cade Cunningham situation, there's no way you could screw 2 Pistons. There's no way. Being the number 1 seed this year, Jalen Duren actually stepping up in a big way amidst the Cade Cunningham injury too, kind of solidified himself as an All-NBA player here. Almost 20 points per game, 10 rebounds, playing himself into a nice contract where before the season we were thinking, Jay, funnily enough, I was actually looking back at some of our other episodes. I had a prediction that he potentially was going to end up on some other, I think on the Nets or the Lakers or something like that. That's how crazy this
Yeah, at the
situation.
trade deadline, I think. Or
I just
no,
thought that
no. I think this is one where we said in the year of 2026 that certain predictions we had for the year, and that was one of those things where I think you said he was gonna end up being on a different team.
yeah, or I think it was before the play. I think it was before the season, just because I didn't see like this whole like All NBA resurgence or like a surgence
Mm,
from Jalen Duren. So shout out to him. He has he has definitely played himself into a near max contract role. Like you mentioned, 30+ million a year, and he's gonna be on my All NBA 13 selection alongside Jalen Johnson.
mm,
I do have Kevin Durant here as well on
mm.
this team. I do have this is like where it's interesting because like I've had four guys here for the final two
Okay.
spots.
Okay.
I had Chet Holmgren, James Harden, Devin Booker, and Scotty Barnes.
Ooh, man, yeah. D Book's been
These are
solid this year too, bro. Scotty's been solid too. Those are two names that I think I like the most out of your list, actually.
so there's four names on this list, and I was really deciding between these four names for the final two spots, but I ended up going pure defense on this one. I'm getting Scotty Barnes and Chet Holmgren as my final two spots. I'm awarding the top. I'm awarding basically all top three DPOY candidates and Wemby, Chet Holmgren, and Scotty Barnes to all make All NBA team.
So, who is the separator for us? Trying to make sure.
James Harden. I think you had James Harden in, and I had Scotty
Yeah,
Barnes in.
yeah. So, man, that's quite the separator, dog. 'Cause I love what Scotty's been this season as a two-way player. I'm not gonna lie,
Again, it's
man.
I like the James Harden one, and to be honest, I was super close with D Book as well. Super
Yeah,
close with
D
D Book.
Book is another one that's kind of plaguing me right now because it's like, but okay. So let's do it on the fly because why not, right? For
Yeah,
James Harden this season, James Harden again, mind you, has played on two different teams this year. James Harden, which by the way, hilariously might have been able to keep his playoff streak regardless of what uniform he wore. Kind of hilarious how that works.
insane.
Kind of crazy how that ended up working. That it seemed like he was trying to get himself out of there because he felt like there wasn't a chance for him to contend. And there's a weird world where him and the Clippers actually might have been able to. Who knows?
Yeah,
Anyway,
who knows?
but this season, right? With the
Yeah.
well, I mean, they don't show the stats for. Okay, so let's
I
just show
will
him for the
say,
season. I don't want to do him split. He's averaging 23.7 points, 4.9 rebounds, 8.1 assists, which is fourth in the league this season. Shooting 43.7% from the field, which is, he's right in his bread and butter, it feels like this season. And more importantly, he's shooting 38% or dang near 38% from beyond the arc on, James Harden volume. This is a really good year for James, and Loki, a little bit of a resurgent year for James compared to last season, or maybe just
yeah,
more so compared to his first half of the season this year with the Clippers.
yeah. I feel
Yeah,
like there was a more of an offensive burden, and like early on in the season with the Clippers, you got more like semblance from of Houston James Harden, where he was the offense,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
He was the offense, and then now knowing that Donovan Mitchell is the number one option over here in the Cleveland, he's become more honestly embracing the secondary option, which has made him Jay. His Cleveland stats are kind of nuts. 20 points per game on 8 assists, 48% from the field, 44% from three on 65.5% true shooting. This man has
yeah.
been hella efficient as a member of the Cleveland
Yo,
Cavaliers. I I,
yo,
I don't hate the I don't hate the I don't hate the choice of James Harden, especially because again, tale of two halves, and he's actually had to play a big role in both of them.
yeah.
As a resident Toronto fan, I will give my I'll give my case for Scotty Barnes though. Scotty Barnes,
Okay.
I think people don't understand how much his presence, how much his impact means to this team, because the more and more I watch this team, and shout out to the Raptors for somehow being 43-35 this year. Dude, this team makes no sense. This team makes no sense. And Scotty Barnes is the giant band-aid that is holding this mess of a team together because somehow, some way,
Buddy.
this team and shout out to I said that this is going to be a top 10 defensive team going into the season. We don't have that many good defensive players. I'll tell you right now, we don't have a great amount of defensive players, but the person that's keeping this whole thing together is the fact that Scotty Barnes cannot, one, just be the roamer, can be
Mm.
the defensive anchor, but also has to be a point of attack defender. He is literally everything, and his ability to switch just makes the Raptors a competent enough team where they can still, again, be in that 30, 43, 44 win mark. Yes,
Mm.
Birmingham has played a big role for this team as well, but Scotty Barnes, even through a litany of different small injuries that he's like experienced throughout this year, has been there almost every single night, playing 76 games. And his offensive game becoming a more confident mid-range shooter, being a more forceful guy inside. I feel like he has like some of the best dunks of the year so far, just becoming aggressive, going to the paint in terms of posters. But no one defines a team, and it's like he's like one of those guys. I think kind of like a Jalen Brunson, like you mentioned earlier, where it's like this team, whether you like it or not, runs through Jalen Brunson, and that is like kind of their identity of the team, especially on the offensive end. This Raptors team cannot operate without Scotty Barnes. He allows the other guys to do what they can, because he is, again, just the giant duct tape holding this team together and making a team that shouldn't fit in terms of a basketball team feel confident enough to be a near playoff team. If they somehow like go into the top six, I'm gonna be even more begging the point that Scotty Barnes should be an All NBA third team
Mm.
guy. I know they're dropping a little bit into the play in, but Scotty Barnes on the defensive end and like the consistency he has shown on the offensive end as well, having some of his better games of this year, I think edges him out. And again, that huge jump defensively along with the offense, I have him a little bit, and maybe it is also too. I didn't want to give two Cavalier players all NBA in that
Yeah.
sense too, being like a fourth seed team, even though James Harden again was in the mix. But I decided to give it to Scotty Barnes as a Raptors representative.
Like I said, I can't really argue against that one too crazy because I there's a part of me that really likes the Scotty Barnes element because I'm a big fan of two-way play when it comes to these type of awards.
Mm-hmm.
I just I'm gonna keep James Harden. I'm gonna keep James
I, I
Harden.
I don't mind it. I don't mind
I
it.
do not. I mean, once we start, I mean, if NBA fourth team was a thing, I mean, Lord have mercy. I mean, once we get there, a lot of the guys that we left off, it gets really tricky. I mean, like LaMelo Ball came to mind in a weird
LaMelo,
way.
yeah.
His third team. You mentioned D Book earlier. That one kind of stressed me out a little bit as far as like guards are concerned of guys that got left off. There's a world where this whole All NBA team thing front to back could have been dang near all guards once you got past first team.
Yeah,
There really is a
crazy,
world where it
crazy.
could have been that nuts. Um, so there's that as well, right? So it definitely gets tricky. I'm gonna go with Harden. I'm gonna go with the wily veteran on this one, but I do think that I mean you mentioned Scotty Barnes. This team is kind of starting to fizzle out at a weird time, though. TV, I will say.
It's
We'll talk about
yeah,
your thoughts about the Raptors a little bit different
it's
podcast, but
it's
yeah,
these last few weeks have not been fun.
yeah,
I'll say as a Raptor fan, it has not been fun these last couple weeks. Shout out to a lot of the guys that are stepping up. I mean, we talked about Jacoby Walter in our last episode. We talked about kind of the big play of Colin Murray Boyles coming in as a rookie, and I think
yeah,
hopefully we get to talk about him when we do. Um, we didn't do all rookie teams here, which is kind of straight. But maybe we might end up doing that in the next episode as well. Because shout out to
yeah,
some of the rookies who have been playing big time this year. But yeah, Scotty Barnes again being just in his role of being kind of the duct tape for this Toronto Raptors team, keeping them together throughout this year. So yeah, I think I will have him in. Very happy that we have like a lot of these guys again, very similar. I mean, you had Jalen Johnson and Jalen Duren on your second team.
mm,
KD, man, this guy's a freaking roach. You can't leave him off your teams no matter what year he's here.
yeah. That was one of those that when you start talking about folks getting like grandfathered into the teams, it's like one of those things that like very similar to
It's
like
like the All
Kawhi
Star
Leonard.
thing, right? Like if you've been in an All Star team like this like X amount of years, it feels like you're just gonna be there every year.
Yeah.
KD's almost like that for All NBA at this
Yeah,
point.
Thank you. That's a very good like analogy
Yeah.
for it. It's one of those things where it's like, bro, if he plays enough games, he's on it. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like you kick him, you be the one to tell KD he's not on All NBA. Like you be the one. It's not gonna be me. Like
Hey, look, 52% from the field, 41% from three, 88% at the free throw line, 64% true shooting. This Rockets team, I know they were in a bit of a rut. They've won 6 straight now after like going on that like really weird stretch where they were going basically up and down and they weren't, talking to each other on the bench, stuff like that. But they've
yeah.
been winning basketball games. And especially with the Fred VanVleet injury, Kevin Durant has been their offense like
Mhm.
throughout this entire season.
Oh
And
word. Though.
Bro's
Seriously.
37 years old and playing 36 minutes a night. Like, come on, bro. This guy's 37
And,
playing.
and mind you, okay, let's throw something out here. KD has quite literally said in post-game interviews, man, it feels like I got to score 30 just for us to be in the game. And my boy basically has to score 30 for this team to win games, it feels like. I mean,
It does.
he's not lying. There's
It
no
does.
cap.
I know. This Rockets team, I don't have the best vibes at all of them going into this playoffs, but I know you got a chance when you got KD. That's what I know for them. So shout out to KD for still trudging on, being that unk of the All NBA third team. Shout out to him. Chet Holmgren, look, one of the top 3 defensive player of the year candidates. His impact is just not going to be talked about as much, especially when you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on your team. But in terms of his offensive output, I feel like this has been his best season so far, especially offensively.
Mm.
For sure. Most rebounds, career highs across the board. Most efficient season, 55% from the field, 36% from 3, 65% true shooting. And then being, again, one of the top 2-3 defensive player of the year candidates. I know the stats don't jump off at you, but his impact can't be
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, right? Is like it's one of those things where like you can't deny that Scotty is like if this is on any team in a much better playoff context, I think that he gets the. This is where you look at him and you say he would get the Draymond Green nod at All
Yeah.
NBA third team, right? OG 2016 version of Draymond Green that's right there at the top or in the top 3 of All NBA defensive team and All NBA defensive player of the year. That guy lands on third team All NBA. And that's kind of where we're pegging Scotty at. Where like the counting stats across the board are not going to shout at you, but at the end of the day, the impact on both sides of the floor can't be denied though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, for sure. I think Chet, like, especially again, being like super consistent here, like all season long, being that number 2 guy, he definitely gets in. And then I think who was the last guy that we had here? Oh yeah, we talked about Jalen Johnson, Jalen Duren. So yeah. Before we move on to all defensive teams, any guys again that you mentioned that you were thinking about adding in that didn't end up like eventually making it in?
I mean, like you mentioned beforehand, Scotty just barely being off, I think is one of them. I think that D-Book is one that really bugs me because I think he really is deserving. I really do think he is deserving, quite frankly. Those would probably be the 2 that might haunt me the most.
Yeah.
But
I know you
other
were
than
thinking
that,
about Towns a little bit. I know I think we talked about off the pod, like you were thinking about Towns a little bit
yeah,
too.
so I think Towns was on the list for me a little bit more so because I just think I'm factoring in where the Knicks are in the standings.
Yeah.
But I think if we're being honest, I wonder how controversial this is, but I think that Scotty is a lot more firmly on this list than Cat is compared to where I may have stood not too long ago, kind of thinking this list over.
Yeah, no, 100%. But yeah, D-Book, again, so someone I had in. Fortunately, James Harden doesn't make it in for me as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them make it on all NBA teams.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are all NBA teams. Again, the first one was pretty cut and dry. You get a little bit wonky when you go to the second or third team, especially like when trying to figure out this game's played. Let us know down below what you guys think. Is there anyone that we're missing? Anyone that we didn't even discuss making it all NBA that we probably should have had on? We want to hear your thoughts down below. Jay, are you ready to get into all defensive teams?
Yes, sir. I actually had a little bit more fun with this list. If that makes any sense. Had a little bit more fun with this list.
I definitely had. I had some fun trying to like get to a lot of names here, so it should be really good. All defensive first team. I want to hear yours. Who do you have on all defensive first team?
So this one is where I gave my boy Scotty his love. This is where I gave Scotty his love. This was actually, I believe he was the 3rd guy. Let me double check. He was the 3rd. Yes, he was the 3rd guy on my list, and I think that has a lot to do with the way the DPOY voting seems like it's going to be structured. Right, he's like right there firmly in top 3. So we got we got Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
We got Chet Holmgren.
Yeah.
We got Scotty Barnes. And then my 2 to round out first team is, you know how we made the whole statement about Kevin Durant being grandfathered onto All NBA team?
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert is just going to be on All NBA defensive team until he's just not. I'm sorry, He just is. He just is. And then my last guy, in controversial, maybe, not sure, but in my personal opinion, there is no reason for the Miami Heat to be a top 10 defense still. So I have to give Bam Adebayo his love, dog. There's no reason that team is top 10 in defense. With Tyler Hero, who's not even a defensive player, missing most of the season, Norman Powell as your lead guard for most of the year. Andrew Wiggins has not really been the Andrew Wiggins he was before landing on Miami. That kind of
Yeah.
was getting pegged as one of the best two-way players in the league when you factored in his defense. And yet they're still top 10 defensively. Absolutely insane to me that they haven't been able to put the whole picture together this season. But if there's one thing that's been a calling card for them all year, it's got to be defense. And I'm giving Bam Adebayo his flowers for that.
Yeah. He has some, like, him and Gobert have some of the craziest on-off numbers in terms of defensive wise as well. The last spot of all defensive first team was crazy to me because, like, the first four we have exactly the same. I have Wembanyama, Scotty Barnes, Chet Holmgren, Rudy Gobert. Same thing with Bam Adebayo. This Timberwolves team should not be a top 5 defense, but Rudy Gobert is literally just holding this team together defensively, like he has done for every single freaking team he's on. So shout out to Rudy Gobert. He's still like firmly into that first team. That last spot was between Asar Thompson for me and Bam Adebayo, and I gave it to Bam Adebayo. I gave it to Bam. This Heat team, reinvigorated offense. Shout out to Davion Mitchell, good solid point of attack defender. Andrew Wiggins definitely has a history, at least like his recent history with being a good defensive player. I mean, this Heat defense doesn't operate without Bam Adebayo, and he, as much as people are gonna like probably take away from the season that his 83-point game, his defense, his switchability, his being able to like basically defend all 5 positions on the basketball court while leading this Miami Heat team, who has again no business being in the top 10 defensively, still in the top 10 defense. Bam Adebayo is the reason for that, and I 100% agree with you. He is on this list. Very big man heavy. This all NBA, all defensive first team.
Yeah, totally
100%.
agree. This is one of those where I think, at the end of the day, whether we want to talk about it or not, from a positional value standpoint, this is the prime position and will always, regardless of positional release from the list, right? The fact that there's no longer like a positional lock on these all NBA lists anymore. If anything, it has only opened the floodgates more for bigs to shine on these all NBA lists, like all NBA defensive team. Because, like, in the same way that I think a lot more guards get favored on the overall all NBA team, right? Because from a positional value standpoint, rim protection, navigation on the perimeter as a big, being able to step out on the perimeter against other floor spacing bigs, all of these things have become much more important in the last couple of years than ever before. And now, though, that makes these guys that much more valuable than ever before.
100%. I mean, it's the deep, like, it's true. I mean, as much as you want to, like, look back into the previous years where you see, some guards getting some love on the all defense, like on all defensive, like the Marcus Smarts, point of attack defenders, you cannot take away the value of what having a good defensive anchor, a switchable guy, someone who is kind of the anchor of your defense, having the most offensive impact. That's why Wemby's going to freaking get as many defensive player of the years as long as he gets 65 games, right? Because nothing is going to... there's nothing that's going to beat that impact. And Wemby and all these guys have that similar sort of impact on each of their teams. And a good indication of that, Jay, all these guys have all top 10 defenses in the NBA.
I mean, that alone should usually book you a pretty strong ticket to at least being in this conversation. But I think the fact that all of them play a prime value within their defense being top 10, I think is even more important. And I think I'm also kind of aiming that specifically at Scotty Barnes, because you have to think about it. He kind of ends up acting as the small ball center for their team a lot of the time.
Yeah, bro, if you watch these Raptor games, Raptor fans will advocate this more than like anyone else. This guy is our defensive anchor. This guy is our point of attack defender. This guy is our major switch guy. This guy's going to defend the best forward or the best guard on your team. He's willing to take all of those assignments. So he is everything else for us on the defensive end.
Who would have thought coming into the season that two of your key starters are Emmanuel Quickly and Brandon Ingram, and you're still seventh in NBA defensive.
And mind you, Jakob Poeltl has like been out for
Yes.
most of this year.
Oh my goodness. I almost forgot that for a second. Yes, and Jakob Poeltl has missed a good portion of the season dealing with a lot of this back spasm and back issue stuff. So you miss Jakob Poeltl, who like the only reason you were even remotely willing to trade for him, given the fact that his contract is gross, is the fact that as a rim protector, he at least brought some real upside. And the stats with Jakob Poeltl next to Scotty Barnes are the most glaring because that's usually when the team is at their best defensively.
Yes.
Yet he's been out most of the time. You have Brandon Ingram again as your three man, and you have Emmanuel Quickly as a lead point guard. And a lot of now, shout out to Jamal Shed and those guys because they play hard. But
Yeah.
you have Emmanuel Quickly as part of your main rotation, along with Brandon Ingram, two guys not known for their defense. And like I said, very similar to the thing where I said Bam Adebayo, no business for the Miami Heat to be top 10 defensively this year. Scotty Barnes and the Toronto Raptors, no business to be dang near top 10 in defensive rating. Yet they are.
Freaking seventh in the league. You don't even mention. I'm appreciate you didn't include RJ Barrett, but bro is sometimes a code on defensive end as well.
Yeah.
Grady Dick, not a great defender at all. The thing is, like our second best defender on this team, scarily enough, is a freaking rookie, and Colin Murray Boyles. So that kind of tells you a lot. That kind of tells you a lot about the defensive acumen that the Toronto Raptors do have.
True.
And again, Scotty Barnes is keeping it together. I tell you, as a freaking like duct tape for this team, top 7 in defense. And I think that's the case you can make with a lot of these guys too. Bam Adebayo, Rudy Gobert, Scotty Barnes especially. Wemby and Chet Holmgren, they both have top 3 defenses in the league, and you know that the infrastructure around them kind of helps that out as well. But Scotty, Rudy, and Bam Adebayo, when they're off the court, there is glaring, and I mean glaring defenses. I'm sorry, deficiency on the defensive end with each of their teams. Wemby to a certain extent too, but and I think like he has the craziest on and off numbers. But these guys, like without them, like defensively, you could see their impact definitely sorely missed. So that's why all of these guys make the first team. Second team is interesting though, Jay. I'm excited to hear who you have as some of you guys on this list. Who do you have on your all defensive second team?
Okay, so on all defensive second team, this one is interesting because, again, certain guys have to be grandfathered in. So the guy that I grandfathered into my list, I felt like, and I don't know if this one is necessary or not, but one guy I put on the list still was Draymond Green.
Okay.
I still had him on my list. Two other guys that I had on this list are two guys synonymous defensively earlier in their first 2 seasons in the league. The Thompson twins. I think both of them should definitely be on this list. Rounding out my list, I'm going with Derek White, who I think probably should have been the first name I named, quite frankly, as one of the better rim defending guard wings in the NBA still. And last but not least, I felt like I needed one more OKC guy because the defensive stats for them is just absolutely bonkers. And it feels kind of unfair to pick anybody in particular because, like, there's Lou Dort, there's Alex Caruso doesn't qualify, unfortunately. Cason Wallace is the guy that I'm going to lean with, though. Cason Wallace, I feel like they've been able to deploy on just about freaking anybody at that guard spot. And he's just done a really great job of creating turnovers, playing passing lanes, being super disruptive. He's kind of been allowed to just take that pseudo Alex Caruso role, both offensively and defensively, but has a lot more chops offensively as a shot creator, maybe not giving a lot of the wiggle room that, some of their lead guys like a Shea and like a handful of their other main shot creating guards can, like AJ Mitchell. But defensively, they have deployed that dude in full effect to be like, let the dogs out, and he just goes ham. So Casey Wallace was my last guy.
Okay, so we're in very similar boats where this is where you shout the point of attack, one-on-one. You can't get by me sort of defenders, especially in the guard and forward positions. We have a lot of very similar guys. I have Asar Thompson again. He was like borderline again. Hopefully he can make the games. I had to double check how many games he's played because I actually think there's a chance he might miss it. Oh no, he's good. Never mind. He's good. Never mind.
Yeah,
no,
the Thompson twins should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I have Asar Thompson.
Yeah.
I didn't have Amon. I didn't have Amon on my team, but I do have Derek White. I have Derek White on my team.
Okay.
I'm still showing off to Dyson Daniels. I'm showing off to Dyson.
Okay. I'm
He
not
caught
mad at it. I'm not mad at it.
Bro is like one of the best still players in the league. I know he's not getting as much love as he did last year because I feel like
Yeah.
was it last year where he was like kind of like top three defensive player of the year candidate or something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Bro just feeds off chaos in terms of like, especially in terms of the defensive end. Like he just causes so much chaos. And funnily enough, this Atlanta Hawks team is like top 10 in defense as well. Sure,
Mm.
he's not like per se the defensive anchor, but the defense like when he is like on the court. I actually have a couple of stats here that I want to like shout out for Dyson on this team. Fifth in steals, obviously. Ninth in like pick and roll ball handling defense, and he has a defensive like plus minus of plus 2.2. So they're better defensively by 2.2 points like while he's on the floor as a guard, which is pretty damn good. So I want to shout out him.
Mm.
I did have another OKC representative, and I was again toss up between Lou Dort and Cason Wallace.
Mm.
I ended up going with Cason Wallace. I agree
Okay.
with you there. I did end
Okay.
up going with Cason Wallace with you there. And then the other guy, I don't mind a Draymond pick. I really don't. I really don't. I mean,
Give me a name because I'm not gonna lie. He got grandfathered on. So give me a name. I'm interested.
I didn't have I didn't have Amon Thompson in. I put in Stephon Castle.
Okay. I'm not mad at it. I'm not. So you had him over Amen, though.
I had I have basically all guards on my second team except for Asar. I have Asar, D White. Again, the defensive stats like speak for itself when it comes to him being a rim protecting guard, being one of those guys that you could put on the best guard on any team. I have Dyson, Cason Wallace, and Stephon Castle.
I like your list. I kind of like the idea of Stephon Castle. I kind of like the idea of Stephon Castle over Draymond Green.
You know what's funny? You know who else I had like, potentially on this list too? Friggin' Marcus Smart. I wanted to shout out Marcus Smart here too.
He's one of those like honorable mentions. I don't know if I love
Oh,
that
he's
too
an
much
honorable
because
mention.
defense has been such a problem for the Lakers all season long, and I don't know if he's got the kind of individual impact enough for me to make him a top 10 defender in the league this year.
Fair.
That might be my only. That might be my only thing, bro. Like, but
Yes.
still,
No shout out. I want to give like one of the Hawks some love too. I mean, like even Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like kind of is like having like a pretty like underrated defensive year. I again gave it to Dyson because he was the one who causes like most of the turnovers, causes the chaos over there,
yeah.
over for Atlanta. But like just in comparison to the first team, you got the freaking defensive anchors. Here are the guys that are disruptors. These are guys that are gonna get in your face, be the point of attack defenders, and that's kind of like my thing here with all the defensive second team. I actually don't mind the Draymond Green one. I feel like there was like a good, especially in the first half of the season where the Golden State Warriors were absolutely humming with Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry. Draymond Green's impact was shown, but with the Warriors slipping all this way, Draymond Green kind of being like, again, pretty impactful, but the Warriors just they continue to slip. I just couldn't give it to him, but I do like respect the fact that he is still one of the more impactful defenders in the league.
Yeah, that was one of those. Again, I can openly admit that it had a lot more to do with the grandfathering, with the fact that he hasn't like completely fallen off as a defender either. So it's not like I just grandfathered him in because he's a name. I think something can be said for all of those. I think one of the more interesting ones that you left off was Amen. I'm very interested about that. I'm just intrigued by the Amen leave off.
Yeah, it's it's weird because like he's like one of those players. I feel like the Houston Rockets is like one of those teams where you kind of like just build like besides KD, you just have besides Alperen Sengun as well. You just have a team just full of defensive dogs. Like on that team, it's like with like him, Tari, all those dudes. Like, the stats like just don't jump out as much as it did in previous years. I think he made like all defensive last year, right? I think he did.
He was right there. I mean, he was right there to the point that some had him as like a potential DPOY winner like last year. He was like that close.
Yeah, no, for sure. he has played the 37 minutes a game. I honestly gave the nod over Stephon mostly because less minutes, and I think like this is like what like kind of like showcases like with the Wemby effect too, and I think
Uh-huh.
this is kind of like what's giving like Stephon Castle like a bit more love on the defensive end is he's willing just to take more chances. He is becoming a lot more like aggressive on ball as a defender,
Mm.
and with Amen, yes, like the team is still like very good defensively. I the impact is like isn't there as much where Stephon Castle some of the stuff like in terms of like pick and roll like defenses like here's some of the stats like seventh pick and roll ball handling defense at 0.88. Amon is at um 28 at giving up 0.93 on pick and rolls, so like Savon Castle's doing a little bit better over there. On and off differential is at 16th where Amon's in at the 20s or 30s. So again, is that a Wemby sort of effect to it because now it's the same thing with Rudy Gobert when he was on the Utah Jazz, right? People are just more willing to be more aggressive. But I think that Stephon Castle, like this year especially, like really showcases him being one of the better attack defenders, even though the shooting hasn't really come around just yet. But defensively on the perimeter, like he's a reason why this team could still be top three with Wemby, and he's like kind of like the perfect point of attack defending guard for the Spurs, and the reason like a big reason why they're top three.
Yeah, okay. I don't mind it too crazy. I think Amin is one of those. I think Asar is kind of like this too, but I think Amin to me, because Asar, obviously leading the league in steals and stuff like that or whatever. But I think Amin to me is less of a stats guy and more of like when you cut the film on this dude is just a menace. I think that's maybe where I'm looking at it. Maybe that's where I'm using my eye test to lean so heavily on Amin is
I
because
think
like the
Nassar
dude
has
is
a
both.
passing defensively this year, though.
I think there's a fair case for that actually too,
Yeah,
right? I think
yeah.
Asar has passed Amon in the pecking order as far as like defensive capability. I just also think that Amon, they're both. I mean, these are guys that are both going to be on this list for a long time. I feel
Oh
like,
yeah,
right?
no,
We
no,
can
no,
both
for sure,
agree on that for
hundred
sure.
percent.
Yeah, these are
No,
two
hundred
guys that are
percent.
definitely going to be on this team or be on these lists for a minute with the way that they're already kind of like
Yeah,
forces this
yeah. No,
early in their careers.
yeah. Asar, like I mentioned, he was a borderline like first team all defensive guy for me. One of the other guys I want to shout out who like won't get some love mostly because of injury and he just didn't play enough minutes. Isaiah Stewart, like when he was like
Yeah,
on the court, like he was like one of the best like rim protectors, like slash like defensive deterrents in the league. He's just one didn't play enough minutes. Two, like he's just because like he just has been injured a lot this year, and the Pistons being so good defensively as being their calling card, especially like around and Kate Cunningham, Sara and like Isaiah, even to a certain extent, Jalen Duren, who's had a pretty solid defensive year. I don't want to say it was all defensive worthy, but
mm,
like those guys are freaking like what the offense like struggling it is like as it is like the reason like why they're so good and why they're number one in the East is because of their defense and Asar Thompson, one of the best defenders in the league. So shout out to him. But there's a lot of guys you can make the argument for. I also mentioned like again honorable mention Lou Dort. I had him there
yeah.
too.
I had to pick a Thunder player, and I picked Kaysen over Lou, but Lou has his own strong argument too, bro.
Yeah, no,
Like,
it's a that Thunder team is full of dogs, bro. That Thunder team is just like up and down. You can name like so many guys that have like all defensive capabilities. I mean, you mentioned Alex Caruso. There's gonna be a time during the playoffs where Alex Caruso is just gonna go on some like just some nasty run like defensively, like creating chaos, defending like all five positions, and gonna be like, how is this guy not an all defensive player? And that conversation is gonna start back up. But man, they're what the number one defense in the league. Surprised that we have. It's like I mean, I'm glad we have two of them, but let's be honest, you can put like even like make an argument for like three, if they're all like if you want to like give them even more love. But all defense is definitely like an interesting. It's definitely an interesting team because you have a bunch of these like good like advanced stats, especially these like on and off, pick and roll sort of stats. But also the eye test is a big part of it, and I think again with your thing with Amon Thompson, um, and I have someone like Jason Daniels who maybe like the stats kind of like favor him in this instance, but it's definitely interesting.
yeah, yeah. I think this is one of those. This is one of those groupings where I think it definitely comes down to what your preference is, right? Again, I think you go anywhere between the statistical aspect of it to the eye test aspect of it to even just what your projection, maybe as to how you see the impact of a point of attack defender in the playoffs versus a rim protector, or a big man who can guard in space versus a big man who like does a really really good job of being able to deter shots at the rim as a rim protector, right? Like, is he better at being able to guard in space against guards, but isn't really great at blocking shots? Or is he a guy that's really great at blocking shots, but if he gets blown by a guard, his recovery is a little bit weak. So he's got to be one of those guys that hovers around the paint a lot. Like, these are all preference things. Same thing with point of attack defenders, right? Like, do you love yourself a man-to-man point of attack defender that could just completely hound one dude, or do you like versatility as far as switchability, where like, yeah, okay, he might not be able to win all matchups if he guards 1 through 3, but he has the size and physicality to
Yeah,
guard up and down the positional spectrum. It's just that he may have one position he thrives against the most. Or are you a guy that like, okay, we can deploy you on the opposing team's best guard, and you can be a danger to shutting him down. But like, if we needed you to scale up, you can't do that. Like, those are all things you have to weigh when talking about like who you think is like one of the top 10 defenders in the league.
100%. And again, it's a lot of like what you kind of value on the defensive end as well. That's why like we use again, you see what our first team is a lot of defensive anchors, but there's a lot of different ways you can put about it, and that makes this team so interesting. Because another one of these guys, like again, before we sign out, that I had like maybe potentially going in here, Neemi's Keita, bro. Neemi's Keita has actually had like a pretty damn good defensive season over there in like on Boston as well. And you can say, maybe it's a system and all that, but he's come in and become. And I mean, I saw it firsthand yesterday when he was freaking destroying the Raptors, like being a rim deterrent over there as well. But
Mm.
this, like, if you look at the stats and the way that his impact is felt, like especially in on and off, like he's like up there as well. And the Celtics being a top 5 defense, yes, a lot of that could be contributed to Derek White, but he's been kind of like the prototypical center you had that you need there. I mean, they've had people like Horford in the past, Kristaps Porzingis, and he's kind of slid right in and still become a really good defensive anchor for them.
Yeah, I think that's so with those guys, I think it's more of like a just how they positionally function for their team. Like, I feel like they've
Fair,
done a
fair.
really good, like especially Neemius. Neemius has done a really good job for a team that, like, remember when the season first started, our biggest question with them wasn't bump rim protection. TV, can this team rebound? Remember, we were talking about that
Yeah,
beginning of the year. Can this team rebound at a high enough clip to be competitive in the league this season? And
they're top 5.
he has been a renaissance for them at that position as far as rebounding is concerned. Because, quite frankly, they've been very dependent on the three-wing lineup of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Derek White in the rebounding department for a little minute now, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, even going back to Al Horford or Kristaps Porzingis on the roster, like, this has been something that's been a little bit of a question for them for a little minute now. This season, Neemias Queta kind of a little like a heaven sent at that center position, where maybe he doesn't end up being like your long-term starting center if we're talking about this team trying to be in the championship picture. But man, he's got to be somebody that stays within their rotation, no question, no
whether
question.
it's like a whether it's a plug and play sort of center, if like some guys like missing minutes, or just becoming one of the best backup centers in the league, Neemias Queta is gonna have a freaking long career in the NBA, bro.
Yeah.
And like, I think this season I kind of proved that as well. So yeah, you can definitely go a bunch of different ways, but those are all defensive teams. Some of the guys again we have as honorable mentions there as well. Let us know down below what you guys think. Do you agree? Disagree? Who do you have on these all defensive teams? And if there's anyone that we're missing, please let us know down below. But Jay, we have reached another end of another fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching. What do you have to tell these beautiful people we hit before we sign out?
Hey man, we got one more episode for you guys later on this week, so definitely tune in for that. We'll be locked in having more conversations about really framing this playoff picture, right? Because obviously as we get closer to the play-in tournament, there's going to be the big conversation of an interesting topic that I want to talk about with TV as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more off pod. I'm surprising him with something that I thought of earlier today. But a lot of interesting conversations that we have in front of us with the NBA playoffs coming around the corner, and something that I also think is going to be really important for our podcast moving forward, and that I think should be a really big draw during the playoffs is we talk X's and O's about every playoff series game from the very beginning of the playoffs, starting with the play-in tournament all the way through until a champion is crowned. That's both on the podcast and directly after these games as instant reactions. I mean, how many places are giving you that, man? Come on, lock in with us. We are definitely going to be giving you guys a lot of different content over the course of the next couple of weeks, next couple of months on the road to the NBA Finals.
100%. I'm super excited for it. Again, we have the award show coming out later this week, potentially coming with all rookie teams as well. So be on the lookout for that. And then next week, playoff predictions. Finally getting into the weeds of all that. And like when it comes to the TikTok and Instagram, that's when you're gonna see a lot of the NBA game, like playoff game recaps as well. So super excited to talk some more playoffs, get into the weeds of these series, and yeah, and you're going to be able to make sure that you're locked in. One, on the Hit Your Free Throws podcast. Make sure you haven't checked this. If you haven't already, check us out over here. But also the short form content stuff, that's when it really does like pick up, especially during the playoffs. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, this is the end of another fantastic episode. Again, make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram. All the places there, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. And you're going to be able to follow along with a lot of the NBA playoffs content that we have coming up. The WNBA, the offseason is going to really start turning up. So be on the lookout for content surrounding that. And of course, we're going to continue to churn out a lot of content over these next few weeks, so be on the lookout. But yeah, hopefully you all have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Peace.